the Senate immigration bill failed yesterday, as anticipated, when Mitch McConnell walked away from it. The bill that he sponsored through Jim Langford, his proxy, on the matter.
Mitch McConnell, man, what a pathetic old man.
Yes, it's it's long overdue for leadership change in the Senate. That's no question about that.
But I'm not saying that this bill shouldn't have been killed. I mean, this bill needs to go away.
Right.
Without a doubt. That's this reporter's opinion.
Absolutely, in complete agreement on that. But there's this larger dynamic at play here, and we've talked about it with respect to Cleta Mitchell's, the election attorney's memo. Been talking about that for the last couple of weeks now, in terms of the vulnerabilities at the state level because of federal statutes like the National Voter Registration Act for all the people who are in this country illegally to be turned into voters come November. That's an issue. The issue, obviously, at the sanctuary city and state level, where the migrants have flocked or have been facilitated by Governors Abbott and DeSantis, to be certain, about prioritizing the interests of people in this country illegally over citizens of America. This obviously is salient in Chicago. Give me an example, too, of the mentality you're dealing with here. And in an interesting place you wouldn't necessarily immediately think of. You think of urban metropolises in the states in which they're located. How about the state of Maine? Turns out the state of Maine has a leftist governor named Janet Mills. They also have a state representative named Dika Dahalik, who's a Somali immigrant. Think Ilhan Omar. Governor Janet Mills has opened an Office of New Americans for the state of Maine. And there's pending legislation that would seek to attract 75,000 workers to the state of Maine over the next 5 years by integrating migrants into the workforce. This is pending legislation, and so there was a hearing on this. And somebody queried that state representative, who's the Somali immigrant and former local mayor, I think, of South Portland, Maine, on this topic. By the way, integrating people in this country illegally into the workforce. This morning, we mentioned yesterday when John Cass sat in, that the Illinois Department of Employment Security is doing the same thing. They've got a webinar this morning. Who should attend? HR people make hiring decisions, people own companies. How to integrate our new arrivals into the workforce. Well, what if they don't have work visas? Doesn't matter. We're in the integration business. So is the state of Maine. The question that was put to this Maine Democrat state legislator was the priority question. Take a listen to this exchange.
What about the military folks that are getting out of the military and they have to go through all the lines and start all over again, even though they have credentials? So my question, pretty simple. Why would we fast track them and we won't do it for our own military?
They have the advantage of speaking the language, most of our military folks. So these folks that we're really working on may not have that. So it's going to be really difficult for them to say, yes, I used to be an electrician in my country. I'm just using mine, which is Somalia. But that might not really fall into our laws that we have in this country.
So there you go. That's explaining why it is appropriate to prioritize non-citizens, many of whom are in this country illegally, to be certain, over veterans, people, American citizens who serve this country.
Yeah, and you also have to think about the businesses who would hire them. How much are they going to pay them, and who's going to work for how much? That's always in the back of the minds of people that are tradesmen, for instance, people who own their own construction company and they're not bound by any union rule. I've had that happen personally, with a painter, with painters. What will an immigrant painter, what will he charge and what will an American-born citizen painter charge. That's very real.
You need a state agency for the immigrant electrician who doesn't speak the language to communicate his skills. You have to set up a state agency. You have to have an office of resettlement. You have to allocate these resources, personnel and financial. You have to have Democrat legislators out there explaining to you why veterans need to take a backseat to people in this country illegally or on a pending asylum application, may or may not have a work visa. And this is the proper posture of a state government?
Well, it depends on who's controlling the state government.
Well, it certainly does.
Yeah.
For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Cody Sargent. He's the comms director for Heritage Action. Cody, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, I mean, it seems to me that sort of not, the instances that are illustrative, the cops being beaten up in New York City, the reporting the 62-year-old woman being dragged on a moped in New York City, this story that's coming out of Maine, Ilhan Omar's speech that went viral where she talked about her purpose as a legislator, as a member of Congress, is to represent the interests of Somali immigrants, not Americans, Somalis here, legally or illegally. She doesn't distinguish, just like her party doesn't. It seems to me this is what is driving the revolt, and which is why the Langford-Schumer bill was DOA.
Yes, I think you're right. I saw yesterday that MAGA Inc., the super PAC connected to the Trump campaign, has a new ad out that's entitled "Joe Biden is giving America the middle finger," showing a video of the immigrant in New York who beat up the police officer, was arrested, released without bail because of that city's progressive policing policies, and then threw up a double middle finger to the cameras that were showing him walking away free. That's how Americans feel right now. I think we're at a breaking point, and I think your listeners in Chicago are seeing that more than a lot of people across the country, but we feel like we're being left behind and others are being prioritized. And for example, this deal in the Senate, the lead negotiator on the Democrat side, Chris Murphy, said on MSNBC yesterday that it was disappointing that the bill fell apart because their strategy on immigration, quote, has failed to deliver for the people we care about the most, the undocumented Americans. That is where their mind is at. That is what Mitch McConnell tried to deputize James Lankford, who I think is a good man, to negotiate with. How in the world could negotiating with someone with that mentality produce something that would work for the American people? They produced a bill that would have incentivized more illegal immigration, made the border crisis worse, and then they dumped it out on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock during the Grammys because nothing says faith in your bill like dumping it out on a Sunday night. The bill would have been a disaster for the border crisis, and I was very glad to see conservative senators stand up on Monday and pretty much make it DOA in less than 24 hours in the Senate.
So what are the chances that this or something like it rears its ugly head again, or is Mitch McConnell in particular properly chastened by what has transpired?
Well, I think the immigration section of this bill is pretty much dead for now. Today, the Senate will try to vote again on the rest of that supplemental funding package, so money for Ukraine, Taiwan, the Indo-Pacific, Israel. They will try to bring that back, and it's unsure if that will pass, but the immigration section has been stripped away, and I think it's dead in the Senate for now. What the Senate should do is take up a bill that would actually secure the border. H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act, was passed in the House 250 plus days ago, and Chuck Schumer refuses to consider it. That's what they should be putting on the floor for a vote and letting senators go on the record voting on. They refuse to do that. So for now, it seems like the immigration section is dead in the Senate, but we'll see what they do with the rest of this quote-unquote national security funding.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, if they would vote to authorize another $60 billion to Ukraine, I mean, that is going to be seen, at least by the base of the Republican Party, as green lighting what McConnell ultimately only cared about, what he really wanted. And all of that now, even to some extent, the aid to Israel and Taiwan, although there's much less antagonism there, it's all seen as fruit of the poisonous Senate immigration bill.
Yes, I think you're probably right. And the Heritage Foundation and Heritage Action have been sounding the alarm about this foreign aid package since before the immigration deal was a part of it. We've issued what we call a key vote to warn legislators that this is our most important priority, urging them to vote no on the package with the immigration deal and without the immigration deal. The package as it stands right now is still nearly $100 billion in deficit spending that we do not have, so more money on our national credit card that would all go overseas, including $60 billion more for Ukraine, as you mentioned, in unaccountable funding. This is coming weeks after reporting that Ukrainian officials stole $40 million in American cash that we sent over there. So this bill, as it stands now, is still unacceptable to conservatives, and we've been saying that for months. When we started raising the alarm back in December about this aid, that's when they cooked up their plan to add an immigration component that turned out to be a meaningless bait and switch. So they lost yesterday, and we're hopeful that they'll lose again today for failing to put Americans first. And we're really glad to see finally conservative senators standing up and making sure that everyday Americans are heard in this process and not allowing the uniparty to run all over us like they have been doing for years.
Cody Sargent, he's the comms director for Heritage Action. Cody, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. And
he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Are you tired of being told to hang in there on the Wall Street roller coaster because the market always comes back? Meanwhile, fees continue to be deducted from your account while your retirement withers away? Hi, I'm Mitch Lyons, best-selling author and star in a brand new Hollywood documentary called The Retirement Deception. In the film, you'll see how Wall Street's traditional retirement plans and 401ks have failed Americans. But more importantly, you'll discover the solution to protecting your hard-earned wealth and retiring successfully.